Hi, the Prophet here. What I want to do today is read for you this book that I wrote in 2017, and I want to read just 3.5 really short chapters. And the title is The War for the Time of Your Life. Now, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or Baha'i or Buddhist or even an atheist, this book is very relevant for basically anybody, any human being, because it was written with the mindset and the intent of addressing the human condition as a whole. To answer questions, life's questions, the factors and forces that affect our decision making processes in life. And as the subtitle of the book indicates, the book attempts to make people understand why they do what they do. So, why you do what you do. And this book, I'm reading it as an introductory process into the content of the Chronological Prophecy Study Bible presentations that I will be doing, because the Bible itself addresses these very same questions and gives the answers more extensively in the commentaries. And so I guess let's get started. The War for the Time of Your Life is the title, and the subtitle is Why You Do What You Do. So, introduction. What is it that our eyes do not see and that our ears do not hear every day we live? Why are we blind to everything we're staring at? We're looking straight at the war for the time of our lives, but we cannot see it. We are listening to the sounds of the very same war, but nothing registers in our ears. It is the war for the time of our lives. Those that see and hear are themselves paralyzed for action. I always look forward to having the time of my life every so often, on certain occasions. When I finally do, after days of anticipating and building up the excitement, it is all over as soon as I blink. Who is tricking my eyes and ears and robbing my pockets at the same time? Furthermore, I'm still bored. How do I make sense of this? Constantly leaping at the dull peripheral is also the wonderment about prophecy. Is it accurate? Where are we in the prophecy timeline? There is a compulsion to be aware that our everyday lives are affected by prophecy and that we fulfill prophecy with every breath and step we take. How often have you stopped and wondered why you do what you do? In most cases, do you even consciously realize what you're doing and why you're doing it? Both the moment-to-moment actions and the actions toward achieving whatever it is that you're attempting to achieve. Do you often ponder the question, what are the subliminal, random, and pattern factors that lead to your decisions, intentional and subconscious? This is an invitation to understand life, your life and that of others, as we explore the questions presented above and various more. You might even be wondering why you cannot find peace in your heart or peace and quiet, and why you always feel bored when you're alone. There are reasons for that. You will understand your impulses and what surrounds greatness, epiphanies, how people suddenly use something to become successful and how it affects you. The subject of against all odds, from obscurity to success. And why are we so attracted to magic and magical love stories? We will confront personal battles, not being able to get a grip on things no matter how much you try. Even with plenty of planning, you never execute. Procrastination plagues you. If you notice, we never ask ourselves this question during happy times. Was my life supposed to be like this? It is often at a low point in our lives, and most of the time it is when we are broke, poor, physically suffering, financially crippled, or emotionally devastated. Is anyone predestined one way or the other? What about free will? What about the question of God? Where did he come from? So, now, what would you do different if you understood life? Chapter 1. Time and Life. From the moment of conception in the wombs of our mothers, we immediately begin to move. Our cells subdivide and replicate. Time calls us to do so. It is time to move. We have now entered into space and time. We occupy space now. We are imprinted into the cells of time. There is absolutely nothing we can do to cause that not to happen or to reverse it. Nor can we stop time so we can dispute whether our involuntary entrance into the world was a mistake or not. Once an event occurs in a moment in time, it can never unoccur. It is forever embedded in the footprint of life, for the best or worst. The linear forward motion of time never stops. It never speeds up and never slows down. It is the one constant thing in our existence, even though our individual perceptions of it may vary. It can never be reversed. Wishing for yesterday and wishing to relive memories is but all we can do. Once we are of age, we decide what we want to be when we get older. Some are born already having their lives planned for them by their parents and their future needs already catered for. The majority of people, we do not reach our personal goals or those expected of us. What happens? There are obviously a number of circumstances that affect success or failure. There is laziness, ambition, environment conduciveness, lack or presence of assistance, distraction and focus, and guidance or the lack of it. Perhaps the most determining factor is the availability of physical resources like information sources, food, shelter, stability, and safety. Not to be neglected is the mentality of considering oneself a victim of either a horrible act or circumstances. Is that the finality, though? Do you have a choice otherwise? Against the worst odds, some excel. Is it by nature's intent that one boil to the top and the other sink to the bottom? Is it probability? Is it a matter of chance? In any case, the success, it is to what end? Degrees on the wall, money in the bank, fame and being distinguished, an Oscar on the display, personal satisfaction for achieving superiority against and over peers, having one's name associated with greatness or the elite, like Einstein, Newton, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, or Aristotle. Well, then what? To what end is the failure as well? Becoming society's outcast, or getting confined to a basement jail and looking at the sky through a small window, miserably pining for the freedom you abused or were robbed of, or being homeless, eating out of waste dumps, poverty-stricken, and being ridiculed by passers-by? Is it jumping off of a bridge to one's death because life has failed you? What is the end game? The purpose of it all? We seldom find out, nor consider, that there has been a countless number of people attempting to reach great heights like the elite names in history, but these individuals failed, either dismally or they were exceptionally close. Whatever the reason, their names are not repeated throughout history, but the elite individuals not only impact the time period they live in, but the effects of their achievements ripple through time to the present and future, like a water wave. To what end was their achievements? All the struggles, blood, sweat, laid into the night working and finally achieving. To improve life today and for future generations and make it easy, efficient, and luxurious? What then after that? Begin another quest, a new varied reason for more exhaustive labor, late nights and brainstorming and finally achieving again? The question still lingers. What then after that? Is it a vicious cycle? Is it a coiled loop? What do we do with the rest of the time? Maybe you do not want to be like one of the superior achievers. Maybe you're satisfied with just being a simple nobody with no aspirations. Just not quite a failure. Maybe you just want to be in between with everybody else in the world, enjoying the inventions and gadgets that the special class excruciated to produce. Maybe you enjoy being entertained by your favorite television show or sports team or athlete who sweats long hours and studies their art form for extended periods for precision and mastery so that when they perform against others, they are dominant and we consider them elite. We hail and idolize them, and they in turn feast on the praises. It could be that your pleasure is foods, pizza, meats, or exotic delicacies prepared by the native chefs. Or your choice of sensory feeds is a combination of many. In and over time, what really led you to settle at this particular point? To say you will not be the producer, but rather the consumer, or vice versa. That you will not be the ambitious, but be the underachiever. Live normal and not be a star, or be famous and not be regular. Have you ever examined that decision? If you are still undecided or never really took the time to look up to the firmament and see that enormous question mark behind the cloudy veil about yourself, why is that? Whatever the case may be, the cultivation over time yielded the present individual, you. Was that the quest of your life? Because there is a quest. Chapter 2. Time, the eye, and the ear. Early civilizations were built on average using one formula. The most cunning and ruthless fellow simply placed and pronounced himself above everybody else around him. He then picked the scariest man with no brains to be his bodyguard, or a group of his thug associates to enforce his agenda. After initiating a religion that employed fear in order to control the consciences of those around him that he was attempting to subdue, and the messes he was intending to later make subject, he then found himself a scribe, or the scribe found him, the eyes and ears that would record his life, his imprint on time. Exemplifying this tradition, none specifically, though in intimate parallel, would be Nimrod. As the ruler expanded his territory into a city by enslaving surrounding settlements and spoiling their goods and property, he would then enact laws to maintain law and order, and had jails and jailers to take care of the culprits. He enlarged his army for the security of his land and property and eventual empire. Artists were one class of people employed for portraits as frequently as the ruler was in the mood for posing. Perhaps the most utilized group of employees were the entertainers, from musicians to magicians, from storytellers to song dancers. Inevitably, there was always a scribe sitting within hearing distance of the ruler to jot down the ruler's comments about the performances. He captured the entire occasion if the ruler rewarded excellence or beheaded poor performers who wasted the ruler's time and displeased his sight and hearing. The scribe wrote it all down. In time, the scribe's records would often disappear. Either they would burn in a fire during war or a raid, or get stolen, or weather would simply get the best of the material used to capture the accounts after the decline of the empire or civilization. Out of that whole generation of individuals, in the hundreds of thousands, one name will be known throughout time: the particular ruler. Everyone will remember his face and words because they saw and heard him. They will tell their children, who will tell their children, and eventually another scribe will write what he hears, what the offsprings of past generations say that their forefathers saw and heard. Time keeps record of sights and sounds one way or another. In many cases, the name of the ruler's scribe is not even remembered, not even the personal bodyguards, neither the governors or officers, nor the entertainers and dancers and musicians. If this ruler forced slaves to build him a castle that reaches to the sky and a monument that arches from this side of a huge river to the other side, rightly or not by merit, history will say the ruler built a castle that reaches to the sky and a monument that arches from this side of a huge river to the other side. Not the slaves, and not the architects, the ruler. The only person else who has a chance to be mentioned out of the generation is anyone who happens to be part of the tragedy that accompanies the ruler at his last end. This ruler has left an imprint on time. We will be tourists and go to see his castle and monument. They're his, they're named after him, they bear his name. Few people leave a huge impression on time. Some, perhaps most of us, an almost insignificant one. It is as though we never existed. We are like the slaves who actually broke their backs, deformed limbs, and caught pneumonia to lay massive brick after massive brick to complete the structures that are named after the ruler. Time does not bring us to recall these strong weaklings. No. Time retains in our memories the mighty, the brilliant, the legends, the firsts, the elite, the ruthless, by what was and is seen and heard. It remembers those that leave a significant effect that resonates to subsequent generations for the best or worst. Names like Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, King David and King Solomon, Bonnie and Clyde, Einstein, Genghis Khan, George Washington, Julius and Augustus Caesar, Hitler, Achilles, Mozart, Beethoven, Al Capone, Cyrus of Persia, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Of course, the list is very long. There is also Carl Benz, Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, Pellegrino Turri, Philo Farnsworth, not disregarding pioneers that came before him, is definitely the one with the most impactful ripple wave in recent human history, and it has not crested yet. How the whole world would spend and pass time was forever changed. He provided the ultimate input tool for the combination of time, the eye, and the ear. Through his invention, the television, you can be in the confines of the smallest closet and still see and hear everything in the world. You can escape to any part of the planet and galaxies extensively and be live and present there, vicariously, of course. You can even learn, in a nutshell, everything about the history of civilizations with examples and decent elaborations. You can be informed about great individuals and their contributions, and even about the very same television itself that you will be watching all of this on, all in one sitting. 6,000 years worth of history in just about an hour. This combination of the eyes, the ears, and time, by duration and intensity of exposure to input, they are the dominant basis for human action and reaction. Some facts about the two organs. The process of sight uses half of our brain, and all the images we see are processed and identified in the brain. The eyes are merely a portal, a crucial one nonetheless. And the eye muscles are constantly contracting and relaxing to adjust for the most accurate registration for sight the entire time we are awake. The eardrum is said to be a little over half of an inch in diameter. The hardest bone in the human body is the temporal bone, wherein the inner ear is located. The smallest muscle in the human body is found in the ear. It is called the stapedius. The ear works all the time, day and night. Both the eyes and ears connect to the brain, which processes responses to our sight and hearing. The images and sounds are recorded in our brain and subconscious. Some we easily retrieve, and others seem to be sealed from being accessed, but they affect us nonetheless, whether we are aware of it or not. Ordinarily, at the time when we see or hear something, we may pay no attention to what the brain does with it. Sometimes, after a considerable amount of time passes, we may attempt to remember a sound or image and we cannot bring it back until we see or hear another trigger, image, or sound. We might even dream at night about something we had completely forgotten, and everything looks and sounds as vivid as the first time we saw and heard it years prior. We remember and forget what we see and hear in time. As much as these two senses give us pleasure, they also cause us scare. Sometimes you may hear screaming and you run. You see people running away and you begin to run without even knowing what they're running from. Your eyes are telling you that they're frightened, so you take off with them. You hear a sad story and you feel compelled to help. Or you see a homeless person and you provide them shelter. Sometimes we see disgusting things and react with hate. Or we get offended by what we see and hear, and we take matters into our own hands. We act and react from sight and hearing all the time. Time is the underlying factor for everything. All we see and hear, and our responsive action to everything, all of it takes time. It all consumes time, it all occupies time, it all demands time, and it is all relative to time. We either waste our time or use it profitably. It is either our friend or foe. We even enjoy it while we waste it at times, whether a lengthy period or a brief moment, all in a significant part because of our eyes and ears. Time determines the intensity and duration of our sorrows and joys. Time is more educational than anything. In time, you learn and prove what is right from wrong, what works and what does not, if you have wasted your time or used it brilliantly. In time, things become clearer or confusing, decayed or glorified, beautiful or not so attractive to the eye. Time cannot be resisted but only embraced. In time you are born, and in time you will die. That is the order of things. No mortal can change that. Time produces wounds, and time heals those very same wounds. Time is money, some say. What would the answer be at the end of each day if we could ask ourselves, was all that we did what we were intending to do in the first place? If not, we have just wrote off a chunk of our time that we will never get back nor replace. If yes, then what is next and why? What do we do with the rest of the time, and why that in particular? The eyes and the ears are what facilitate our regret or enjoyment of time. They manufacture the diversity of our interests and apexes of what we often term the time of my life. At any given moment, we all want to see attractive things, and we want to hear the sweetest sounds. Everything must be appealing to the eye, or we look elsewhere. Everything has so little of my time to try and impress my eyes and ears. We are constantly looking for something new and exciting. Now, not later, now. If we do not see anything catchy about something or someone, we immediately look away or forget about it. We never stop looking around. We keep flipping the channels on TV, and we look to see whether the cover is attractive before we pick a movie. We look to see if a woman is gorgeous before we ask her out. And before we ask her out, the eye has already stimulated the imaginations in the mind. Saliva starts to well up, and all the senses come alive like a lion seeing an antelope. All of this has to and does take place in a very short amount of time, in a matter of seconds. We hate to bore our eyes in the time that we are awake. In a short amount of time, we want to see a lot of eye-dazzling things at more than 200 frames per second. If something is happening slowly, we fall asleep, or if we can control it, we speed it up and not savor it. And then we complain about it not tasting as good. Sometimes, if something is moving too fast, we don't slow it down because we will be bored. Instead, we speed ourselves up in order to keep up with it. And we are not mindful of running into a wall and crushing to our demise in the process. We often forget about brakes. We do not need them, since we do not intend to slow down anyway. It is all in the eye. The ear is not slacking at all. The sound of music cannot entertain if it does not stimulate the senses. It has to be a seductive beat that makes us want to move our waists in a rhythmic fashion, or bang our heads to a rumbling bass or kick drum. We have to feel the bass kick in our abdomen and chest. We subconsciously think to ourselves, it has to be loud so it can block off my thoughts. I do not need my brain to think. I just want to enjoy myself. I have time. It's my time. I want to enjoy myself. I have worked hard, or not, but I'm entitled to enjoy myself however I feel like. I want to do what I want to do. Our eyes and ears help us achieve just that. They are our basic primary sources of pleasure. In turn, they awaken secondary excitable senses. After we see and hear, we want to experience the full effect. We see a material, we want to touch and feel it. We see a delicious looking mango, we want to taste it. Beautiful flower, we want to smell it. We hear the music sounding from inside a building sounding jumpy. We pay and go inside to be part of the whole fun and lose yourself experience. We see the fleshy looking car and hear the rumbling sound of its engine. We want to get inside and experience the full effect of taking it for a ride at speeds of more than 200 miles an hour, if we may. The magnificent texture of an artwork. We want to caress it and examine the contours and smell the age of the paint and go, ah, life is good, especially if you can afford it all. The movie that we have been eagerly waiting for to come out in the theaters. We will not wait for the streaming. Even if we're broke, we go there. If we can afford a powerful home stereo system, we make sure it gives us the same experience as in the theater. We get our favorite seat and set it in the center of the room so we can absorb the whole 3D experience in all its intended effect. The loud, deafening explosions and car chases and the shootouts and special effects and all the panned microsounds. You feel the sound tickling your stomach and churning the insides of your intestines. The visual effects, so defined. You cannot blink for 1 second because you will miss a fly blinking in the screen. By the way, flies don't blink. A weapon comes at you and you duck as though it was really coming out of the screen. From now on, every movie you see must look and sound this good because this one gave you such an arousal of the senses. Not just every movie, but everyday life itself should be similar in excitement as the movie. The fantasies should be real. The jokes should be even funnier. Every encounter in your real life should now have a deeper mythological aspect, like the plot in the movie, a mystery about it. You inspirationally feel part of something larger than yourself. You pause for a moment, then you realize you have been holding your breath the whole time you are watching the movie due to the thrill. You inhale deeply and then exhale. With satisfaction, admit to yourself, I'm having the greatest time of my life. Chapter 3. The Question of Origin. Now, let's turn up the brain gears to a higher level of understanding. Everything that you know and everything that you don't know, they all affect your moment-to-moment and day-to-day decisions. For instance, a chain smoker keeps smoking because he has no idea that he already has lung cancer. But as soon as the doctor lets him know, he then changes his whole approach to cigarettes. He begins to live a more healthy lifestyle, especially if he has kids and a wife that he loves very much. The things that they used to consider important and interesting suddenly become pointless. When your perception is that you will live long, you tend to be carefree and party. You tell yourself, as stated before, I have time, it is my time, and I want to do whatever I want to do. But the reality is that blissfully being ignorant about some subjects that affect your destiny in life is a fatal mistake. You cannot be dismissive about the present ongoing war for the time of your life. It is the nature of mankind to be curious, to ask questions, very many different and diverse questions. The main ones, however, are, why are we here? And how did we get here? And since these obviously deal with a sense of origin, then the unavoidable question becomes, how will it all end? These three questions have troubled civilizations, philosophers, cultures, and religions for ages. Some religions believe in an unending cycle of rebirth, where one may die and come back as another form of matter, maybe a tree or a bird. Some teach that you die and go to paradise right away, or purgatory, and there the devil cooks the taste of sin out of you. What is the truth? Both of these different theories cannot both be right. One of them is wrong, or maybe even both of them are wrong, and there is a right one that is different from these two. There has to be an absolute truth. Otherwise, civilization needs no courts and no law and order. To illustrate, on one side, there is the Muslim Jihad who claim that they have the truth, and that their truth includes an eradication of anyone who is against their principles. On the other hand, there are those who say all religions should be secondary to a democratic governance. Therefore, everyone's religion must compromise and adapt to subscribe to the common good, whatever that is, maybe peace among all peoples. Then there are some who look at all the wars and violence committed in the name of religion and say, religion is what is wrong with humanity. Abolish all religion. What is the solution? Because all the sides are convinced that they are on the right, that their way of thinking is the truth. Moving on. So let's rhetorically ask, did we evolve? And how long did it take? Or was there a creation process? How long did it take? Was it a literal 6 days or just long periods in between the creation events? Because we do have to account for the length of time that the dinosaur existed. Christians continue to debate questions like, will the Antichrist come from the Middle East? What is the true Armageddon? Where will Christians be during the final tribulation and during the 7 last plagues? What about during the millennium? Some say on earth, others say in heaven. Instead of Jesus coming back, some non-Christian prominent theoretical astrophysicists say that there will be a different kind of apocalypse, like an asteroid or a supervolcano. Well, are they right? But if Yeshua the Christ is coming back, when will he and how? Loudly or secretly, like in the Left Behind series? Where are the dead right now? Some say they're in the grave, others say they're smiling down from heaven. Which one is it? They cannot both be true. It is undisputed that there is an end of everything as we know it quickly approaching. The earth and life in it is unsustainable for much too longer. In all projections, fish and wildlife are dying mysteriously in extinction numbers. The weather has lost its mind and become enraged. Climate change is upon us already. Extreme weather patterns are prevalent, frequent severe storms and earthquakes. There is also a constant threat of a nuclear World War III. It is so short a time before something or somebody ends this world. The signs and evidence is all over, all around us. But what kind of apocalypse does this evidence point to? What has history recorded? What are the scientific facts to validate whatever theory predicts the end? The most important thing in life is for you to personally go deep in the search for truth, so that you may know for yourself and not from hearsay. Since how you understand and believe your sense of origin to be greatly affects what you think about your destiny and your purpose in life, then before we tackle the rest of the subject of the war for the time of your life, let's quickly deal with the origin of everything. Where do we come from? Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the reading. And I will begin to answer those questions, everything, including where do we come from. In fact, the next segment, we will begin to answer that. And so thank you for taking the time to watch and listen. I greatly appreciate that. So, and please like and share and comment and subscribe, all the good stuff. And I will see you in the next segment. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Thank you.